24 of the Transform Your Life in 15 Minutes. This is where we're doing 5-minute exercises, one each for the mind, the body, and the soul. My name is Pia McAdams, and I am a college professor teaching accounting. I'm also a certified coach. I specialize in personal and small business finance and also fitness. I help people reach goals in those areas. I want to take the time always to thank you for taking time out of your 24 hours to spend 15 minutes with me to help transform your life. And we're doing it in the mind section by reading Dr. Maxwell's Psycho-Cybernetics. For the body portion, we're doing the Yoga Sun Salutations. And for the spirit, for the soul, we are doing a 5-minute meditation where we are focusing on our breath using Ujjayi breathing. All right, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. Again, we're on day 24, but this is always a perfect time to sow seeds. So I like to use that analogy of sowing seeds because that's exactly what we're doing. And just remember that just like when you're with the harvesting, there is a time to sow and there's a time to reap, but it won't be in the same season. So right now, we're actually sowing the seeds. And guess what? For some of us, we actually are reaping some of the benefits now, even though generally speaking, the big benefits, the big reaping is not going to come to much later on, but you're just kind of planting seeds. In other words, a lot of times what we try to do is we look on the outside of us and then we make judgments based upon the outside. So for instance, if you're overweight, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you see, maybe you don't like what you see. And so then you come up with a plan. Okay, I want to change this. And so then you go and work on your body. You go hire a trainer, you start eating right, and then you start, doing the things that you need to do in order to change that outside image. But as I mentioned yesterday, that's sort of like painting the outside of the house while the inside of the house is messy. Well, if your insides are not cleaned as well, meaning if you don't have that self-image where you actually see yourself physically, mentally see yourself as a in-shape person, then no matter what actions you perform to do in order to change the outside, then guess what? Eventually you're going to go back to the way it looks. In other words, if you're trying to lose weight, let's say that you do lose the 100 pounds, you're not going to be happy with yourself. But let's say that you go get the surgery. You're not going to necessarily be happy with yourself because, again, it's internal, it's subconscious, and you're going to sabotage yourself and end up gaining the weight back. It's what we see, remember when The Biggest Loser was that huge TV show where they talk about all these people losing a lot of weight and where everybody was, rooting for people to lose weight. And then they always do the after effect, but later on, like years later, say, well, where are these people now? And you find that the majority of those people are back to where they were, some of them even heavier than when they started. It's because, and again, this is all I should say this is all psychology, okay? And again, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but to me, it makes sense because in my years of coaching, I've actually witnessed this, and in my personal experience, I've witnessed it as well. So again, what happened is they turned back or they gained the weight back, and it's because inside themselves, mentally, they don't see themselves as a fit person. And keep in mind that we get the self-image basically from the childhood. We start hearing different things. And I was reminded of a story, not necessarily a story, but an instance. Let's say that you have or know of a child that was born that was not physically perfect, like there was some type of deformity in our mind. We call it the deformity. And to that child being born, the child doesn't know that it's deformed, or let's say it's missing a limb. The child doesn't know that he's handicapped per se, right? The child's being born, he's happy to be alive. And then it's the parents looking at the child saying, oh, my poor child, he's going to have a hard time in the world because he's missing an arm or he's missing a leg or whatever the case may be. And so they project that handicappedness onto the child. And then of course, as the child grow up, he starts seeing, his family and other people may have 2 limbs or, 4 limbs, and he only has 3 limbs. And so then he recognizes that, there is something different about himself. But it's the parents that's going to actually influence how that child grows up, because again, it's your environment initially that helps shape that self-image. So for instance, if the parents in that instance is supportive and saying, you know what, they're going to make it seem like you may have only 3 limbs, but you can do anything that you can do. They still put him in all the sports, still put him in the activities where he can excel and do whatever he want to do. That child is going to grow up, being able to accomplish a lot of things. But if they sit there and just kind of nurture the child and try to keep them special and just, keep them secluded from other, children or different activities, saying, well, he can't do that because, and not giving him an opportunity, then you can imagine that that's going to grow up in him as well. Like, I can't do it because that's what this environment said. And then over the years, those things kind of progress. And again, it doesn't have to be a handicapped child. I just use that as an example. It can be you as well. You grow up, in an environment where there's either a single parent or both parents and they're arguing, and there's always a lot of stress and tension. The money is tight. You're growing up around hearing all these things. And this is where we get our attitudes and our beliefs about money, about relationships, about social environments, education, everything. It initially starts in the house. And then, of course, we branch out into the schools and then to our other environment. And this programs us, our self-image on what we think we should be. Well, imagine fast forward to when you're in adulthood. Well, if you haven't done things to change that self-image, and again, this is all subconscious, the self-image is subconscious, but if you haven't done anything positive or something very influential to help you change that self-image is going to stay with you. And then you're going to constantly add on to that. Like, for instance, just think of the negative things that you're always saying to yourself. Oh, I can't. I'm a failure. I can't do that. I'm not worthy. Some of it's conscious. Some of it's subconscious. Well, guess what? All of that is still imprint on your subconscious mind, including your self-image. So what I'm saying is, if you're having trouble reaching or realizing your dreams and you're wondering why, perhaps it's because your self-image needs to be upgraded. And how do we do that? Well, we're learning different methods in this particular book. And a couple of things that we learned was, one, let go. When I say let go, again, once you have a goal, let's say your target goal is to, program your self-image. Okay, P, I hear what you're saying. I get it. I need to redo my self-image. Okay, make that a goal. Make that initial decision that you're going to do it. And then don't stress about it. Just kind of let it go. And when I mean let it go, just make the decision that you're going to do it. And then just start doing what you've been doing in other words, some of the action that you should be doing, what we're talking about, the reading, the exercising, the meditation, but I don't want you to consciously stress about it. That's what I'm saying by let it go. Don't make it on your mind 24 hours. Just kind of let it go and let your internal mechanism take over and do the function for you. So does that mean just sit back and relax and do nothing? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. There's actions that you're going to have to do, but it's going to be actions that's going to be less stressful. It's not going to be anxious. And so that's what we're talking about now in this book. So you're using things like imaginations, mental picturing. My favorite, and the one I would say is the most effective, would be meditation. Because what you're doing is you're calming your mind. You're not thinking thoughts, and then ideas will just kind of pop into you. One of my favorite ways to meditate is to go running. Running is very meditative for me. Like, I just go running, I get into the zone, and I'm out there with the nature, just not really thinking about anything. And all of a sudden ideas would just pop. Like, it's a very creative experience for me. And that's why I love running. I've been doing it forever. But there's other things, like, for instance, you could just be reading, you could just be relaxing, or you can just be working on something else, but it's not what you consciously programmed your mind to work on. And then all of a sudden ideas will come on ways that you can do or things that you can do to help program it. Okay, so it's not just relaxing, not doing anything, but it's doing the right things. So what we're doing tonight is we're going to learn about 5 rules for freeing your creative machinery. So keep in mind that a lot of times we know this happens, right? Like, if you think about the people that we consider the right brain people, the creative people, these are the people like the artists, the writers, the musicians. If you think about it, if you know of any and you talk to them, you will find that they don't consciously think about their art. It kind of just is inspired to them. I know, for example, like I grew up playing the piano. I was classically trained as a pianist. And even to this day, I haven't played in like literally years. I have not played the piano in literally years. But I guarantee you, if I was to sit down in front of a piano and try to remember, let's say, one of Bach's pieces, one of the sonatas, and I was to constantly try to remember it, I won't be able to play it. But if I were just to let my hands go on the keys and just not think about it and just play, I guarantee you I'll start playing. It won't be perfect, but I've played it so many times that it's ingrained into me, into a habit. And if I just let go and just finagle around, just kind of play around with the keys, and eventually it'll come to me. But if I sit here and try to physically think or consciously think what the keys are and how to play it, I won't be able to play it. So that's sort of what we're talking about. Don't try to consciously stress yourself into learning things. You're going to develop the habits, and particularly if the habits are already in you, because they really are, right? I'm just kind of pointing out the quote unquote negative things, but there's a lot of positive things that are also programmed into you in your habits as well. And those are the things that will come out automatically if you stop stressing over the one thing that you're trying to accomplish. All right, so we're going to read about 5 rules for freeing your creative memory machinery. And again, if this is your first time joining me, welcome. Okay, so number 1, do your worrying before you place your bet, not after the wheel starts turning. I am indebted to a business executive whose weakness was roulette for the above expression, which worked like magic in helping him overcome worry and at the same time function more creatively and successfully. I happen to quote to him the advice of William James mentioned earlier to the effect that emotions of anxiety have their place in planning and deciding on the course of action, but once the decision is reached and execution is the order of the day, dismiss absolutely all responsibility and care about the outcome. Unclamp, in a word, your intellectual and practical machinery and let it run free. Several weeks later, he burst into my office as enthusiastic over his discovery as a schoolboy. He has discovered his first love. It hit me all of a sudden, he said. During a visit to Las Vegas, I had been trying it and it works. What you hit and what works, I asked. What did you hit and what works? Now, the advice of William James. It didn't take too much of an impression when you told me, but while I was playing roulette, it came back to me. Now, this is what I'm reading now. This is what the business executive is answering when he said, what hit you and what works. The advice of William James. It didn't make too much of an impression when you told me, but while I was playing roulette, it came back to me. I noticed any number of people who appeared not to worry at all before placing their bets. Apparently, odds meant nothing to them, but once the wheel started turning, they froze up and began to worry whether the number would come up or not. How silly, I thought. If they want to worry or be concerned or figure odds, the time to do it is before the decision is made to place a bet. There's something you can do about it then, but thinking about it. But you can figure out the best odds possible or decide not to take the risk at all. But after the bets are placed and the wheel starts turning, you might as well relax and enjoy it. Thinking about it's not going to do one bit of good and it's wasted energy. Then I got to thinking that I myself had been doing exactly the same thing in my business and in my personal life. I often made decisions or embarked upon courses of action without adequate preparation, without considering all the risks involved and the best possible alternatives. But after I set the wheels in motion, so to speak, I continually worried over it and how it would come out, whether I'd done the right thing. I made a decision right then that in the future I would do all my worrying, all my forebrain thinking before a decision was made. And after making a decision and setting the wheels in motion, I would dismiss absolutely all responsibility and care about the outcome. Believe it or not, it works. I not only feel better, sleep better, and work better, but my business is running much smoother. I also discovered that the same principle works in 100 different little personal ways. For example, I used to worry and fume about having to go to the dentist and other unpleasant tasks. Then I said to myself, this is silly, the unpleasantness involved before you make the decision to go. If the unpleasantness is all that important to cause so much concern and not worth the worry involved, you can simply decide not to go. But if the decision is that the trip is worth a little unpleasantness and a definite decision is made to go, then forget about it. Consider the risk before the wheel starts turning. I used to worry the night before I had to make a speech at the board meeting. Then I said to myself, I'm either going to make the speech or I'm not. If the decision is to be made, if the decision is to make it, then there's no need in considering not making it or trying to mentally run away from it. I have discovered that much nervousness and anxiety is caused by mentally trying to escape or run away from something that you have decided to go through with physically. If the decision is made to go through with it, not to run away physically, why mentally keep considering or hoping for escape? I used to detest social gatherings and go along only to please my wife or for business reasons. I went, but mentally I resisted it and was usually pretty grumpy and uncommunicative. Then I decided that if the decision was to go physically, I might as well go along mentally and dismiss all thoughts of resistance. Last night, I not only went to what I would formerly have called a stupid social gathering, but I was surprised to find myself thoroughly enjoying it. All right, so that was number 1, and we'll read the rest of them starting tomorrow. But basically what this is saying, it says, do your worrying before you place a bet. So they're talking about the roulette wheel and how the what they were doing was they were worrying about what bets are placed on the roulette wheel. Where they're going to put on this number, red or black or whatever the colors may be. And then they were worried about it. And then once they make the decision about which number to place the bet on, they're still worried. Well, guess what? After you made the decision and placed the bet, then the wheel is going to turn, and why worry about it? It's pretty much out of your control. And so that's what we're saying now as well. It's like once you make a decision to do something, then stop worrying and stress about it. Just let the decision or the action take place itself, and it will. Try it, and then let me know how it goes for you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the yoga portion, and then immediately following that, we're going to be doing the meditation. Now keep in mind, when it comes to yoga and meditation, it is a practice, so you want to be patient with yourself. And what I do is, I interchangeably go from intermediate to beginner to intermediate, or I should say beginner to pretty much advanced, doing the yoga salutations. So keep in mind again, if you didn't get a chance to watch the instruction on how to do the yoga, I'm using my breath. So all the movements are based upon my breath and my breathing. And generally speaking, the very first rotation that I go through, in the downward facing dog, I hold it for 5 deep breaths. The second time, I usually hold for 3 breaths. And then from that point on, I just do single breaths. Okay, so relax. This is a practice. Be patient with yourself, particularly when it comes to meditation. All right, join me. to the meditation. And remember, as you're meditating, the purpose is to still your mind. Push all the thoughts gently away. Get in a nice, comfortable position. We're going to be focusing on our breath. We're going to be inhaling for a count of 1, exhaling for a count of 2. for yourself today. That concludes day 24 and Transform Your Life in 15 minutes. Again, thank you for joining me. You guys have a blessed day. Bye.